During the early 1990s, a photographer named Larry Clark was attempting to capture and expose the seedy underbelly of American culture. He had already created a series of photo books exploring the reality of drug use, crime, and sexuality in Tulsa, Oklahoma. But his pursuit soon led him to New York City, where he searched for his next subject. In a 2016 interview, Clark said, "Visually speaking, I thought the most exciting kids were skateboarders, so I gravitated towards them. And that was how it started. I hung out with skateboarders for about 3 years to get the story." One day in 1992, one young skater approached Clark and began talking to him about an obscure Swiss filmmaker. This skater was a 19-year-old aspiring filmmaker named Korine. Clark was already looking for an opportunity to collaborate with someone who was living a life he wanted to show on screen. He asked Harmony to write a script, and in a week, it was complete. From the 2016 interview, "He had access to this world. He was one of them. I wanted the film to feel like you were eavesdropping on a secret world of kids that adults didn't know about or have access to. And thanks to Korine's brilliant ideas and screenwriting, it did. Kids, made in 1995, portrayed the life of New York street kids so realistically that some people mistakenly believed it was a documentary. The film is hyper-realistic to the point of surrealism. Seeing the darker parts of the world portrayed how they truly are is so unusual to see in mainstream film that it feels almost avant-garde and surrealist. These ideas, first established in Kids, appear to have influenced the rest of Korine's career. Over time, he's made a number of films that explore the darker side of American culture, but today I want to focus on my two favorites, the aforementioned Kids and the iconic Gummo. These movies use deliberate cinematic techniques to transport the viewer into their respective worlds, exposing a nihilistic side of our lives that is often ignored and avoided in mainstream works. When watching any of Korine's films, his style is very distinct. To me, this comes down to 4 basic qualities: the camera movement / video quality, the actors, the sound, and the location. Let's start with arguably the most important tool during filmmaking, the camera. In almost all of Harmony's films, the camera takes a subjective role, placing the viewer directly into the scene alongside the actors. The opening scene of Kids demonstrates this perfectly. The camera moves down the street with Telly and Casper talking, casually letting cars and pedestrians come into the frame and cover the subjects. As the boys cross the road, the city around them is ignoring and indifferent to them and their disgusting and immoral conversation. The camera work for the rest of the movie continues this subjective viewpoint. It's always moving, turning, and reacting to the actors' movements, like human eyes focusing on the most interesting thing in view. Take a look at this sequence of the boys meeting up with their friends in the park. And again, during this party scene. The camera wanders around slowly, letting the viewer notice everything within the frame. The viewpoint of the camera immerses you in the world as a whole, rather than trying to tell one linear story. Korine goes even further with visual experimentation in Gummo, but all his decisions are deliberately chosen to represent a subjective, realistic view. Like in Kids, he uses handheld movements with quick pans to mimic the human eye. However, he also uses a mix between Super 8, 16mm, 35mm, and video. The Super 8 footage is low quality, high saturation, almost impressionistic and documentary style. These different mediums are used throughout the film to represent different perspectives of an array of characters throughout time. Fictional scenes are shot in a way that recreates the improvised style of home movie footage. The emotion and realism of the film increases as the resolution decreases. Much like the location and set design contributes to the visual language of a movie, so do the actors. We're mostly used to seeing actors who represent the most broadly appealing, conventionally attractive members of society. But as Korine likes to show the most visually unconventional and interesting sides of our world, his actors also reflect this. In Kids, the main actors were all chosen from a group of latchkey kids who skated on the streets of Manhattan in the 90s. Clark and Korine specifically cast for non-actors, as they wanted to portray true authenticity. Korine later said in an interview that he would always rather use non-actors, as they're able to give up a bit of their real selves in their performance, whereas professional actors cannot. In fact, many of the character traits seen in Kids were somewhat based off of the actors portraying them, giving the performances another layer of authenticity. And Gummo is much the same in terms of the casting. Once again, Korine focused on specifically casting people who were inexperienced and non-actors.
Did it really randomly, hired people out of factories and stuff. I gave myself 45 minutes to cast the entire movie out of like Burger Kings and slaughterhouses.
These actors' unconventional, natural looks add another layer of realism to the film. They better reflect the people we see every day in the real world, especially in a place afflicted with poverty like seen in Gummo. We see many physical deformities or just unconventional features that are hardly represented in Hollywood. Lastly, what I believe is the true heart of a lot of Harmony's films. Kids and Gummo are entirely shot on location, and these films employ such fantastic world building that the location actually becomes a character itself. The story of Kids entirely centers around the city of New York as a living, breathing entity. Many techniques are used to amplify this, one of them being the production design. Or, not really production design, but just Harmony Korine being a fantastic location scout by being a real local and knowing about hidden gems in the city. Places like this apartment, the stickered telecom, the green hallway, the badly drawn graffiti tags covering the wall and the windowsill, and the old school 40 bottles crowding the table. To me, this apartment feels too perfect to be designed. It's real. It's a real lived-in space. Even more visceral is Telly's family apartment, seen a few scenes later. The stairwell, this doorway, this stack of papers on the counter, and the rest of the clutter that is just too detailed to not be real or authentic in some way. We as moviegoers are so used to perfectly made sets with deliberately placed clutter. We all know what a set looks like, and what the inside of someone's house looks like. This is a home. Let's take a look at the locations in Gummo, where Korine dials it up to 100. Where Kids showed realistic clutter and homey locations, Gummo depicts filthy hoarder houses and true poverty. Much like Kids, the heart of the film lies in the uniquely unpolished locations. I could basically show you any scene from Gummo to demonstrate this idea. Junkyards, houses filled to the brim with hoarded items and trash, or this scene of a particular frame being taken off the wall, but none would do better than the iconic bathtub scene. This scene is known to make a lot of people's skin crawl for good reason. I mean, look at that bathwater. But this is how some people live, with bacon taped to the wall because a kid stuck it there one day and no one cared enough to remove it. Every location, background, and set piece reminds you of neglect and decay. But among this dark, disgusting, and disturbing world, humans can still care for each other. In that black, murky bathwater, Solomon's mom lovingly serves him his favorite meal of spaghetti and chocolate milk. Or like when the three sisters start punching and swearing at the pervert who picked them up in the car. This is the silver lining in Korine's dismal pieces of art. Even among the most depraved situations, the care between two people can be a reason to keep going. In conclusion, the films of Harmony Korine are unlike that of any other. He has the unique ability to write and direct in a way that really puts our lives onto screen in a way no other director has done before. Despite having these non-linear, train-of-thought plots that completely abandon three-act structure, Korine is able to create these insanely memorable experiences through set design and atmosphere alone. The indescribable feeling that one gets from looking at these graffitied walls in Kids, or the lead actor's face in Gummo. We're just seeing a portrayal of life on screen that is so much closer to our own than any movie that has come before. It's almost surreally realistic.